Well, today we're doing an electronic video, and like other things, every video can't be a train or a Land Rover video. This is something I actually need to do. Across the front of our property we have no front fence, so in place of that I've put an infrared beam, because we do have a lot of uninvited visitors that sneak onto our property in the middle of the night, and then promptly things go missing and people wonder why we have so many cameras. Anyway, I do like to get the early warning, and presently there's a little AT-Tiny85 processor attached to that beam that will generate a random delay before flashing a light to alert somebody that they've tripped a beam. But it also immediately triggers a wireless doorbell, something similar to this, and lets me know inside. I have been running that for quite a long time, and people have kind of got used to it, and they figure that there's no real repercussions when it happens. Now, motion detection on cameras is not perfect. However, an infrared beam is pretty hard to fool. So I'm thinking I'm going to upgrade to this little ESP32 with Wi-Fi and have it give me a daily report by email of the dates and times that things have been triggered. I thought about putting a real-time clock on this, but I figure if it's on Wi-Fi, it can get a network time server. Instead of having a front panel light, I'm just going to have this little red push button that flashes. Later on, I may hook it up to the mailbox to tell me when I've got mail. I have a 3.3 volt regulator here, although I think the few milliamps I need off the 3.3 might be able to be supplied by that, because I could just leave the lithium cell in this doorbell unit, but I don't like batteries that go flat all the time, so we might power that off the supply that comes in. We're going to use a bridge rectifier so that I don't accidentally get it backwards, and a couple of banana plugs to simplify things. And we may fit it with a breather tube to deal with it sucking water in, because it undergoes quite wide thermal ranges. Have an additional relay module. I don't know if I'll use that. And we also have some prototyping board in case we need that. These are the bits I've got. Originally this project was going to be an Arduino with an MP3 player module to be a cat deterrent, and we had ourselves a little amplifier here as well, but I'm repurposing this box for this because it's of more use. Recently the one on the fence got full of water and it's become unreliable since, so I've had to drill a hole and everything, but I think something is just not quite right with it, so we're going to replace the entire unit from scratch.
20 minutes later.
Alright, so I've got the hardware mounted and the recycled switch here. I've decided I'm going to go banana plugs. The number of times I've had to disconnect and reconnect this, and to be honest, some of these banana plugs are through-holed anyway, so that creates a bit of almost like venting, I guess. I am still going to drill probably a pressure relief hole and probably put a bit of pipe in it, but that should help with the whole negative pressure thing when it rains. So I'm going to have contact closure in, power in, and then I'm going to have a bridge rectifier off here. This has got plenty of room to sit up nice and high in case there's water gets in the box, so it should be alright. This is going to be outdoors, so I don't know how the banana plugs are going to handle being outdoors, but at least they're very easy to replace. The current system I have is hardwired in and it's difficult to service. This way at least I can rip the whole thing off the wall, bring it inside, and then service it and put it back outside again. Next bit here is going to be the weather seal, which we're going to put in. These are commonly available boxes here, which means I can go and buy another lid off the shelf if anything ever happens to it as well. And critically with this design, I'm no longer attaching anything to the lid, so that the lid doesn't have anything to I can take the lid off and inspect without it having to be an issue. Now, the whole question about the doorbell kit. You can get ones of these that use the A23 batteries, and they make them 12 volts, which is what I'm currently using out there, which is all fine and dandy, and it works really well with a 12 volt input. I'm looking to go away from that this time. I think partly because the 12 volts across the radio contacts and stuff like that does make it a bit more susceptible to corrosion, but more particularly this one was $5 cheaper, so I'm going to try and work with 3 volts, considering I have the little 3.3 volt regulator. Now it occurs to me these are probably not a 12 volt input, these are probably a 5 volt input. So I'm probably going to use like an LM7805 regulator to go in here somewhere. Now the other reasoning behind this kit is it has two receivers. I can plonk one of these receivers much closer to the source as a backup, because the one I'm using at the moment is a very cheap one and I don't think it's quite making the range. Sometimes when there's a vehicle parked between this and where I currently am, it doesn't receive the signal. So having a duplicate receiver gives me a little bit better chance of getting an alert. Alright, we're putting batteries in these, and they make a little chime to let you know that they're alive. There we go. Now, pull a little tag here. It's got a CR232. Oh God! Alright, that was instant sensory overload. I think I've got it set to a normal ding dong. Nope. Okay. Alright, I also turned the volume down, which is a nice feature. That's much better. Nice and simple. Okay. Alright, a disassembly seems to be by a single screw, which is of a reasonable size and feels to be stainless. There is a little clip. I have a spudger for that, such as this one. Can we open this like so? Can open it. Alright, fairly neat little unit. A much better tuned antenna. It's actually got a proper coil antenna here instead of an onboard one. So it looks like we are going to have easy access to the battery terminals. Let's see about the switch contacts. Now the thought is, if I'm running this off the same power supply as everything else, I could probably have the GPIO port pull that pin low, but I already have a relay there, so we might just hook this up across the contact closures on the relay. Right, so I was able to snip the post off without interrupting the antenna too much. And there is a long hunk of wire hanging off here. I don't know if that needs trimming or if that's forming like a ground plane for the antenna. We'll work with that. If we have issues, we will come back to that. Now the button is good. Okay. So that button contacts are very easy to get to. So this is a nice, easy modification. So we should be able to replace battery with that little thingy, and then we can feed it. What we might do, because these things get very hot if you feed them 12 volts, what we might do is go through the bridge rectifier, which will drop it by about 1 volt. So this will go through essentially 2 diodes at half a volt drop each. So that'll drop it down 1 volt. Then we'll go through a 5 volt regulator, and off the 5 volt regulator we'll run this as well. So that should keep the temperature, the heat on all those regulation sides down just a little bit.
2 hours later.
Alright, a lot of wiring has happened since we last looked at this. So we have our 3.3 volt regulator here, we have our bridge rectifier. Up the back here is our LM7805 regulator. Our doorbell is successfully running off the 3 volt regulator. We have our 2 trigger wires off the switch which go to the relay. We have this extra wire here which is tacked onto the GPIO2 input on that, or IO pin. Hopefully I can set that as an input. We've got ground to one of these. IO pin will go to that. I'm not sure if I'm going to need like a resistor or a debouncing circuit there. We'll find out. Our switch works. We've got to program our ESP32. But for the most part, this is working fairly well and it's looking pretty good, at least from my perspective. I've been getting a bit of flack from my colleagues who have been watching me build this, that I've been putting a bit too much hot glue into it. Alright, so a bit has happened in the hours since I pushed the record button last. We have things mostly working here. And with the great help of ChatGPT, we did some programming along with some corrections from a colleague of mine. We have our doorbell circuit working here, which we can push, and you hear them in the background. We have our illuminated button that comes on when we turn it on. We have our contact closure inputs here with a 5.8k resistor, and that is connected to the back of this board corresponding to IO pin 2, which is what also that blue LED is on. We have it listening to that we're pulling that to ground through the resistor to indicate a contact closure. So from here, what we're going to do, we're going to demonstrate a contact closure. Now, this is, say, if somebody had parked in the beam, this will go off for every 5 seconds. For 30 seconds, it'll keep triggering, and then it should give up. And after that, it'll try again after 10 minutes. and after 10 minutes it should reattempt normal operation from there on. I have tested this and I showed it worked, so we're doing all right in that regard. I'm just going to wait for it to stop here for a minute. So it should stop. Also, after it does all this, it should collect all these log events. It connects to an NTP server, collects the log events, and then it saves them to RAM, and it should every day send that to me by email, and then clear the log if all things have worked. I'm not sure if it will work. I'll find out in about another 5 hours if that works, and then I'll report back.
The next morning.
Alright, so we have picked up some stuff, and overnight it grew a heatsink. I discovered that over time this linear regulator here, which it dumps its excess power as heat, was getting just a little bit too warm in the box with everything else. So I found a heatsink solution that hopefully doesn't let water ingress happen. Now, we did get an email from this overnight, which worked very well. I do need to change the timing that email comes in. However, it was able to connect to Wi-Fi, successfully send an email, and it gave us the log. Hopefully, if we have a very busy day, it doesn't fill up the log file completely and fill up all the RAM and crash. I'm not sure how it'll behave if that happens, but I guess we'll work it out. We'll work with it. Anyway, I'm going to solder some banana plugs to some new cable, and hopefully we can interconnect this and replace our existing system. Alright, now we have our old system, which we can fire this up and run a demonstration. This has been running for about 5 years now. So if I stand in front of this, it'll notify the doorbell immediately. Then after a random delay, it'll start flicking relays. And this has extra outputs to run lights and whatnot, which we're not going to use today. We're just going to turn this off, and yeah, we're going to change it over. Okay, we're going to do the choppity chop with the zip ties. This should drop down. Chop a bunch of zip ties up here with a bunch of things. This needs changing over soon too. Okay, now you'll note that on the back here there's this little hole that's angled down nicely. This tends to sit just a little bit forward, so hopefully the water sort of all runs to the back there. We're going to run this in like that. So we're going to plug these in, and we're going to see how well that works. And also, one of the reasons why I put the bridge rectifier in here is sometimes it can be hard to see the polarity, and the way we've set it up, it doesn't really matter. Alright, we can take the top off this. For some reason, ants absolutely love these kind of sensors. Now, I need to get a small screwdriver. I need to pull these wires out, replace them with some new ones. And this is our main power in, so this will be interesting to see if we can still piggyback that off there. Alright, we're wired up to the doorbell. Now we have some connections here we don't want to short. These are our power connections. We're going to plug these guys in. Cool, that works. These are our marked ones. So these are for contact closures. Okay. Now, I want to make a slight change to the programming. But for the moment, I'm going to turn this on. And we'll let it see if it works and does its testing and whatnot. Just going to do a quick inspection in here. Make sure things are working alright. Okay. We're still flashing like we haven't connected to Wi-Fi yet, so I'll give it some time. I probably won't trigger till it's connected to Wi-Fi. Right, this is having trouble connecting to Wi-Fi. There is another access point in the shed over there, so I might program up a second module, give it the other Wi-Fi access point, and see how we go from there. Alright, so I went in and programmed up another module. In the meantime, this one had connected to the internet. Hence by the blue light has stopped flashing, so it's going to trigger the doorbells. Alright, we're back inside. We are getting doorbell signals, and I can't show you the MAC address of everything connected to my network, but it's connected. It was connected at about 46 megabits. Now it's about 39 since I put the cover on, and the signal's about 50%, about 2 or 4 bars. So I think we'll let this run for a bit, see how it behaves, and if it is going to be unreliable, we'll swap that module over. This is why I wanted to do this. It makes servicing much easier. Okay, we have the freshly reprogrammed module can go in here. Not sure if there's a good spot I can park this in here. I'll just have to leave it out for now. It might turn on. We'll check if our Wi-Fi light comes up. Okay, the doorbell's not holding on. I did check, it hadn't gone through, the programming had stopped at 68%, something had interrupted it. So it looks like it's connected to Wi-Fi pretty well. Seems to be connected. There we go. I can hear the doorbells going inside. Alright. Put this on together and then we'll see what the signal level is like from the other access point. Alright, so we've got the air conditioner turned up and I figured I'd get bored, so I decided to disassemble this, and I can't remember which way up the screws go. I think this way. Okay, so a little while ago when it got full of water, I drilled these vent holes and drain holes on the bottom, and then I sealed the top with a bit of decent duct tape. The years have gone on, so alright, so here's our front LEDs poking through the front. These are our relays that were in single banks that have come off from the hot glue. We have our DigiSpark unit here driving the whole shebang. Our unit there. A doorbell unit which has got a little unreliable since we moved it. This is a 12 volt unit, but the water was up to the switch contacts in here at one point. So there was a significant amount of water in here. I'm not sure if it created any corrosion on the doorbell circuit, but we're going to leave that go. And you can see here I ran all this off a 5 volt controller and it passed the 5 volts through onto these guys. So yeah, and I got a little junction panel there and everything for the grounds. So again, there's probably better ways of doing this, and this had like a really improvised pull-up circuit in here. You can see this wire tacked on, but this has done a good tour of duty. But now I've moved on to something better. And I do notice there is still moisture in here. Some of this might be that electrical cleaner lube I put in. So things are just not quite right with it anymore. So yeah, we'll see how the new one goes. Alright, this morning I woke up to an email right at the appropriate time with logs that match with the CCTV we have, which is very nice because some of the motion events that I recorded didn't exactly tie up with these, so it is nice to have that log. If I'm away, whatever, I'm going to get a good record of who's been in and when they came and went. So nifty stuff. We have cleaners coming today. They'll probably park in the beam, so I will test if it times out. But we already did that by having my apprentice stand in the beam. So we're working pretty well, and we're going to call this quits for this video. And we'll move on to something more interesting. And again, many thanks for my supporters. You guys are in the little loop here. It should show you guys up in the background of all the other videos. If you want to get on here, it's like $1.49 a month. You can get in as a channel supporter. Every now and then I'll do a live stream and give away a few memberships. And but yes, we'll see how we go. Hopefully this was a fun one, and we'll talk to you in the next video.